Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome back. It's time again for another edition of the Weekly Member Spotlight. Very excited to sit down with someone who is a familiar face for sure. He was a guest very early on in our Weekly Member Spotlight days, and he's got some new exciting things to share with us about his business, and he's had a little time to really take advantage of being a member of the GCNKAA. So we said, hey, Jack, why don't you come on and join us for the Spotlight Initiative again? And he agreed. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Mr. Jack Brendamour, who is the CEO and co-owner of Junk King and King's Treasures. Jack, I know that was a very informal introduction, so I'll ask you to add on to that and tell us a little bit about yourself and Junk King and King's Treasures.
Absolutely. It's good to be back. I think it's been a couple years now since our original one, but no, Junk King, as a lot of you know, Junk King can help remove anything from a home, yard, or business. And what really separates us and a desire for people as individuals, especially businesses, is what we do on the back end is we try and donate and recycle as much as we can. And so I don't want to forget this stat because it's so exciting. We had our 2022 impact report come out, and we actually kept Junk King Cincinnati alone kept 860,000 pounds out of the landfill, which is equivalent to 72 school buses or 5 Boeing 727s, to kind of picture that.
That was very helpful because I'm a very visual learner. And so those statistics mean a lot more when you compare them to a 747. Wow. Well, that is very exciting. And I know that you have offered up a tour of your facility to some of us in this industry to understand how you operate and what it is that you do. But we were chatting right before the interview, and one of the things that you said that I find fascinating is how you've really grown in your partnership with members of the GCNKAA. We are all faced with staffing shortages right now, and hiring and being able to retain the talent that we need to service our residents every day has become a really impactful issue. How is it that Junk King is helping multifamily owners and operators solve for that?
Oh, we were talking about this before. The skilled labor that you have, the people who can build cabinets and redo carpet or whatever you need them to do, it's normally the least desirable part of their job, and it's a waste of their skilled labor. So we're pretty comparable pricing for you to handle things or for people to handle things in-house anyway. So we're quick, on time, professional. I have 23 trucks and we can come in and take the old cabinets or carpet or whatever it may be from the third story and do 300 units kind of right in sync with maintenance people. And then also things like leveling dumpsters, or if someone dumps a sofa in a parking lot, or if we have to meet a sheriff for a set out, things like that.
Yeah. And I mean, gosh, I've not been on site in a very long time, but I think if you ever talk to anyone who's been in this business, there's a horror story about walking into an apartment that someone left every single thing they own or trashed it. And so having someone to come in and clean that out definitely is a huge resource. When I was a property manager way back when, this gentleman collected beer bottles, like probably drank them and just didn't throw them away. There were thousands of them. Had you been around back then, had I known you back then, holy cow, that was a days-long project. So that's really good to know. How long have you been in the industry, Jack?
So I'm going on 8.5 or so years. We 8 years ago, we had 3 trucks and 10 employees in one location, and now we've grown to 5 locations, 70-something employees. I mentioned 23 trucks, and we also have our self-service, which is a great option where we have a dumpster delivery as well.
Yeah, and do you ever do that with the multifamily?
We do when the situation's appropriate. Sometimes projects are slower, or you don't want to have people going up and down for whatever's going on. So we do pretty much every day. We're taking a dumpster to some multifamily unit.
Yeah, that's helpful. So having done this for approaching a decade, I'm sure you've got a lot of fun stories like those of us who operate the properties every day. What's one of your memorable stories about being in this industry?
You mentioned the labor shortage, and our workforce doesn't face that because of the why is so easy at Junk King. The stories every single day. I mean, if you came and took the tour of our recycling center in Sharonville, it's one after another of, we didn't take things to the landfill when we would have made more money doing so. We brought it back. We sorted it, set it to a nonprofit, but one that really jumps out at me. Long story short, family, a mother, 3 kids, living in her car for a year. Neighborhood or Operation Give Back in Blue Ash actually got them an apartment, and she called and said, "Hey Jack, we don't have mattresses." And we had just taken actually out of a multi-unit. We had some mattresses were left behind or in a storage, I think it was. And so we got this whole family, all 3 of her sons, mattresses, dishware, couches, tables, everything. And it was a week before Christmas, and we gave her a Christmas tree, and she just started crying. She said, "I've never had a Christmas tree in my life. My kids, I never expected to have one." And it's stories in the why like that that really make it special at Junk King.
Yeah. Well, I noticed your backdrop there looks a little different than it did last time I talked to you. And we were talking about how what you just said about keeping things out of the landfill. You know, I know a lot of properties have recycling programs, but a lot just do not. And so how are you guys able to help with things like recycling?
A lot of properties will have the typical things, the metal, the cardboard, the things that generate some revenue. And what we have done is we now take carpet padding, we take plastics, we take electronics, paint, pallets, tires, Freon appliances, and the biggest one is styrofoam. So we recently purchased a styrofoam densifier, which styrofoam never decomposes. It's one of the worst things, 14 million pounds being created a year. But you can actually bring styrofoam to Junk King, or we can pick it up from your site, and we'll make sure it's recycled and made into park benches or insulation, different things like that.
Well, that was my next question. When you condense it, what does it then become, and what do you do with it?
That's it right there. And that's
cool.
That's the big thing. If we're comparable in pricing, why not keep things out of landfill? Any company not outwardly going green, in my opinion, isn't going to be the most respected and best in their industry. And that's the world we're all moving to, and everyone knows it. So we've kind of put the foot first forward in the junk removal industry and are glad to do it.
Yeah, I like that very much. Obviously green is in our name for my company. And so we take that very seriously, but it's something that you don't think about if you're not being given the opportunity to learn about it. And so when I think about appliances getting delivered and some of the packaging, lots of styrofoam at the multifamily level for sure. So that's very good to know. And when you say that people can drop off, do they need to make an appointment? Can people just kind of come into your facilities?
Yeah, no appointment needed. Obviously, if you're showing up with 3 big trailers full, we'd like a call, but typical business hours, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and Saturday, 8 to 2. People can bring it up. We still do charge them. Sustainability is very expensive, which is why we launched our store, a sister company, King's Treasures, because it's just so expensive. I don't know if I mentioned this yet, but if we dumped all that in the landfill, we'd make more money. But good people support us because of what we do, and our employees are good people because of that as well.
And you give back. So that's really great. Can you talk a little bit about some of the partnerships? I know you're very supportive of one in particular, but talk a little bit about the giving back mission for Junk King.
Well, of course, Dragonfly, I'm sure is what you're talking about. The Dragonfly Foundation, I sit on the board of, so I always want to mention Dragonfly, helping families with pediatric cancer. But Junk King works with over 50 different nonprofits, 50. And it's not always just a resource or write a check. It's employing people who may need employment, or it's putting them on our social media. And we do go to galas and golf outings and things like that to help with the financial side of things. But it's really special. It's great to give back, and it creates a great culture.
Well, I love that. Thank you for sharing, and thanks for giving back. Our association takes that very seriously as well. And we have a separate foundation, the Apartment Association Outreach Foundation, and we partner with a lot of local food banks and rent assistance providers for members of the community who are renters and not renters that need help, because the strength of our community is what's important, the greater good. And so I appreciate that about what you do. And it's certainly very near and dear to our hearts as well in this association. What advice or perspective would you offer up to people who are, in our industry or just in business in general?
Well, one thing I want to mention is thank you to having that same perspective. It's very apparent. I know events you have, things you do, it's noticed and it's important. So thank you. But But advice to anyone, I think understanding your culture and constantly working on it. Leadership, any leadership listening, you know this to some extent, at least. It's constantly evolving with the changes in time, and supporting people, and being just a positive role model to your employees, but also the community. And I think it's very important for everyone to understand numbers to some level, being
Yes.
able to just so someone doesn't take advantage of you personally, even outside of a business perspective, just have at least a basic understanding of P&L and financial sheets, and just, it can help you all around.
Very sage advice. What do you like most about your role, Jack?
Oh, well, my role changes from, well, at home, I've got 3 kids under 5, and my wife's a teacher, so bless chaos at home. But my role as a CEO, I like to look at myself as a teammate. Today we have one of our biggest jobs ever, and I was out there this morning loading cubicles with the guys to get the job started. So I enjoy every aspect of it. I enjoy representing the company, listening to my employees, listening to our customers, and just continuing to build the Junk King brand that's just becoming, I may be a little biased, but one of the most loved brands in the entire city.
Well, I love driving by your Sharonville location all the time. It's front and center on the highway, and I'm like, it's my home stretch. So it's certainly making an impact in the city, and you've grown at least one more location since we talked last. Has it been more than one?
Yeah, we have, well, since we talked last, maybe 2, but we have Greater Cincinnati, Greater Dayton, and Greater Louisville. So we'll shoot over to Lexington, but our headquarters, our home base, our community to start was Cincinnati, and remains our home base.
Well, I love that. A couple more questions on the business side, and then you brought up your family. I loved my favorite part of this initiative is getting to know people on a personal level. So I'm excited to get to the personal part of it, but we're going to round out this professional side of things with a couple more questions. What do you see are some challenges facing the industry right now, or what you do?
So I think across the board, inflation's a major issue for everyone. I mean, you have to adapt in some way or another, and unfortunately, some companies and some vendors can't just raise their prices. And what we've tried to do is we've sat down, and going back to the financial statements, you look at things you can control and ways you can save cost or adapt to a different scenario. And that's what we've done instead of raising our prices. But inflation, workforce, I know everybody you talk to, you mentioned it.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to find good employees, and it's hard to find people that even show up. So we work off of internal referrals, and it's a great job for us too, because we mentor our employees, and they can work 1 day a week or 6 days, and we're very flexible with scheduling. So that helps. But yeah, workforce and inflation seem to be the 2 biggest ones that keep jumping out at me.
Well, and I think that probably is affecting every level of every service industry these days. So I absolutely agree. Another question: what would you like to see kind of evolve or take place in your industry or in the multifamily industry, since that's our audience here, to really, level set things or improve upon the challenges that we have?
Well, everybody has to find a home. Everybody has to find an apartment. And so people want to support the Village Greens of the world because of how they treat their tenants, but also that green mentality and that community mentality. So just continuing to march down the path of creating a better world for our children and for our future. And then also in the multi-units, the world's becoming more and more remote, and having a workplace at home in the apartments, and having a place for the children and date. You never know when it may shut down again, but there's just so many more remote jobs, and future designing of apartments and condos. I would look to have rooms that are really good to have that quiet for work, but also have rooms where kids are safe and you can kind of keep an eye on them and move toward the future.
Yeah, a lot of our newer properties are being built with some kind of, shared workspace concept in the amenity space. So if you need a conference room, if you need like a, cubicle type area, that you can use that as an amenity at the building. So a lot of newer properties are doing that, which is very necessary. Hopefully we don't ever face what we did a couple of years ago with the lockdown, but it's change the way we work and interact with one another anyway. So, all right, well, I'm ready to shift gears if you are.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, tell us about your beautiful family.
Oh, my beautiful family. We are so for the religious folks out there, say a prayer for my dog. I dropped my dog off at the vet to have a tumor removed this morning. So
yes.
that's heavy on my mind, Boca. But I have two twin 3-year-old daughters, just absolutely amazing, beautiful people. And then I have a 5-year-old wild man son coming up on 6, who I'm head coach of his basketball team right now.
Ooh.
And it's fun watching my first kid at least evolve into kind of more self-dependent and has a life outside of what I completely have known and controlled. And so children are great. My wife is just my rock. She's at Little Miami School District. She's a Title I reading teacher.
Nice.
So she's seeing, you talk about pandemic backlash. She's seeing a lot of kids coming into those young years just with no understanding like they used to have. So she's working really hard, keeping that going. And we live in Loveland. We're local, and certainly appreciate everyone supporting our business.
Oh, well, I love that. And my son's 11 now, but it's still, when you send them out into the world and you have to trust other people with their hearts and their souls and their well-being, it's terrifying. It's like, no one prepares you for that. So I can relate to that. Is he in kindergarten yet?
He is. And this year he's in kindergarten, and you don't realize how big of a life moment as a parent it is, them getting on that school bus for the first time. I did not prepare myself for that. When he got on, I was like, wow, like that's a powerful moment for your first kid to do. But he's in great hands, and at some point you got to let them spread their wings, right?
It is. It's a beautiful but terrifying thing. Well, I hate to even ask this next question because I feel like you probably don't have a lot of time on your hands, but when you do, what kind of hobbies, what do you do in any spare time just for fun?
Well, up until last week, I got amped up for Bengals games and celebrated after Sunday. And now I love sports. I love the outdoors. I'm pretty adventurous, run marathons, bungee jump, skydive, try everything a few times. And I love to travel too. So spending time with my family is number one on the list. Right now, sometimes I pull the gray hairs out that I'm growing, but family focused.
Well, I love that. And speaking of the Bengals, we share an affection for our hometown team, but it is painful. We were talking before the interview, like, I don't know what to do with myself today. The last so many Fridays, it's like being amped up and ready for the weekend and what game is coming at us and, all the things. And now it's just like this deflated, I have to get back to the reality that we're going to have 20 weeks without any kind of football of any kind. I don't count the draft period as a real, like I need the game, but it was an exciting season. And being a hometown man and, I don't know if you grew up here, but raising your family here and whatnot, it's just done something to our city to have a team that is something to be proud of and that is winning and, in contention for the last couple of years. So I share that hobby, and I'm going to have to try to find something else to do with my Fridays.
Very, very promising future though. I have 3 brothers, and we used to have a Bengals bus, and we'd go down there at 7 a.m. and paint our faces and get all decked out. And it's sad a little bit. The season's over, but it's almost like sometimes like no more heart attacks on Sundays.
Right.
But great season, bright future.
And reset. So you're the guy that has the bus and does the painting and does all the things. That's funny. I just tailgated for the first time literally in my entire life. I think last year, maybe the year before, like I'd never even gone down to tailgate, gone to countless games, but that was not me. And I found out the fun of that. I'm like, why did I wait so late in life to get into the tailgating part of it?
That's half the fun.
Well, now I know. Being a business man and an entrepreneur, I'm sure you love to read and you listen to podcasts, but share one of your favorite books or podcasts.
Yeah. So right now, my favorite book is probably The Hungry Caterpillar that I read about 4 times a night to my daughter, Julia. But really reading's important. I don't have as much time as I'd like to. I'm so whooped by the end of the days, but The Aggressive Life by Brian Tone's a great podcast. If you haven't heard that one.
No, make a note of that.
Yeah. He's the guy who started Crossroads Church, and it's not just like religious focused. He's anything in life, kind of how he starts is anything in life doesn't good doesn't come with some type of aggression, and aggression has such a negative connotation behind it to some extent, but it doesn't need to. There can be a positive aggression, and you have to be willing to take that step or be risky in something to kind of get yourself to wherever you want to go.
I love that. I kind of toggle between, and I listen to Audible anytime I'm reading a book, because if I sit down, I take root or pass out or something. I can't just actually read, but the podcast and or listening to a book is good. So that's part of my favorite thing with this initiative, is getting all these recommendations. I had not heard of that one. What's a favorite food or restaurant if you're having the luxury of going out?
Oh, the luxury of going out, getting the babysitter is one thing, but we have, so a wise person once told me, when your wife asks you where you want to go to dinner, you say, we're going to your favorite place. And wherever she says, that's exactly it. But no, going out's important. Making that time's important. And we like pretty much all foods. It's always a good Jeff Ruby steak. It's never a bad thing, but most of the times I eat the scraps left over from my children as I'm cleaning up the mess.
All right. Well, since you're a Cincinnatian, I have to ask, Gold Star or Skyline?
Skyline. No question. I'll eat both.
Okay. I didn't think you would say it even if it was Gold Star, but I think I might add that to the question list here. I like that one. Well, if you are, you mentioned your puppy and said that your puppy, who I know is not a puppy, you just dropped off. Is that your only pet?
It is. She's coming up on 10 years old. She's a black lab boxer mix, and she's such an important part of our family. And we love animals. And I'm pretty soon going to get suckered into getting a bunny from my daughters, I'd say.
Oh, that's cute. Okay. Well, I have to ask, because I'm making the parallel. Did you and your wife get the dog together, or was it someone's dog when you met?
So the reason her name's Boca is we were in Boca Raton, Florida on vacation, and we were sitting out by the pool, and we said, let's get a dog when we get back. We weren't engaged even. And I actually decided I wanted to ask her to marry me there, but we said, when we get back, we'll get a dog and its name will be Boca, whether it's a boy or girl. And so we ended up finding her on Craigslist, actually, but of all places, but that's how we got Boca.
Well, I'll say a little prayer for Boca that all goes well today. And that's always fun. And I've never had a bunny, but my niece had a bunny, and they're great pets too. So good luck with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, what about TVs or movies? Any favorites that come to mind if you're...
I like those kind of where you can sit back and just let your mind go and laugh. The Offices, as you ask, I'm not going to think of them, but Parks and Recs, things like that. But Happy Gilmore is probably my all-time favorite comedy.
I quote that as often as possible. That's a classic for sure.
Gold Jacket. Oh, we won't finish that.
I know, right? You have to be careful who you're quoting that around. Well, a couple more questions and we'll let you get to your weekend, Jack. What is the best concert that you have ever attended?
Been to a lot of good concerts. My wife's really into Mumford & Sons, so we've been going to some concerts like that, and they put on a heck of a show a few years ago up in Indianapolis. But really, just for me, it's being present in the music, and we can enjoy any type of music, really.
Nice. We've got some really great venues in Cincinnati. I think it's, not necessarily a destination for concerts, but I like with the two new ones that they've built down on the riverfront recently and Riverbend, like we really do have some great venues. So it's great to be, I guess, if we're not in football season, the summer concert season we'll have to do. Yeah.
I've got a few good ones on the horizon. The Zach Brown's playing after the Reds game in June.
I saw that.
So we've got tickets to that. And then also going to Billy Joel and Stevie Nicks up in Columbus in August. So a couple fun ones.
I saw Billy Joel when he was at the ballpark back maybe 2 years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. Oh no, I think it was 2 years ago, but that was fantastic.
I was there. Great concert.
Cool. Yeah, that was a great concert. And I can't believe I'd never seen him. But it was spectacular. And I hadn't been to an actual concert in Great American Ballpark either. So that was spectacular. And it's always funny when there's a big concert like that in Cincinnati, especially with social media, like you see every single person in the entire world is there too. And I'm like, am I going to walk by someone I know any minute now? I kept looking around because everyone had posted, like 5 different people posted they were there. Well, what about vacation? What's the most memorable vacation that you've taken?
Memorable, I'd say we've been to Europe a few times. We took my son to Switzerland when he was 1 year old, Geneva,
Wow.
and then we drove to Paris, and that was with a 1 year old. We actually rented a Mini Cooper, and the stroller we brought wouldn't fit anywhere but the front seat.
That's funny.
So my wife had to ride for 5 or 6 hours, whatever it was, from Geneva to Paris in the back seat as we're passing this beautiful countryside. And then we get to the airport, and the security guard on the way home pops the wheels right off where it would have fit in the trunk. And we just look at each other like, no way.
That's funny. Any family vacations planned for this year?
Yeah. We're going to first family road trip since my daughters were born. We're going to Destin in April on spring break. So looking forward to that.
Fun. Yeah, that would be really nice. So your daughters haven't seen the beach?
They have not.
They have not. The ocean. Yeah, that'll be spectacular. Well, good. Well, what is a random fun fact about you that people might not know unless you were asked this very question?
Random fact.
You might have already.
So for me, I wake up as a business leader and a father of young children. You don't get much time. Anyone who has young kids understand you're just so tired by the end of the day. But I wake up at probably 3:30 in the morning every day. And that first 3:30 to 5:30 is my time where I can catch up on emails and stretch, work out, whatever it may be, all of the above. And that's my time. But I'm in bed at like 9:30, 10. So I'm done by then.
Right. That's kind of random. I don't know anyone who gets up that early. But I definitely, in all of the leadership books and all the things, having that dedicated time where the rest of the world isn't coming at you for something, needing you, sending you emails, calling you, texting you. That is definitely, I think, a leadership skill that is highly recommended. Have your time in the morning.
Now, time for word of the wise there. If someone wants to start doing that, time your emails to send at a reasonable time. Don't be that person that's sending emails at 3 a.m.
Well, I learned that lesson, but for the opposite reason, staying up very late and sending emails very late into the wee hours of the morning, and people being like, why are you doing this? Like, and then I learned the value of scheduled email sending.
Balance of life.
Right. Well, I got two more questions for you. We're going to kind of round this out and tie it back up to junking and your professional experience. But I do want to take time just to make mention of anything that you're especially proud of from a personal designations or awards. Junking, I know, has been recognized a few times.
So we have a really big one coming up that I'm not allowed to share yet, that you'll see on our social media, but we left and right, we're winning awards for what we do for the community. Right now, we're finalists for the Coleraine Township Community Impact Award and Business Leader of the Year. And the biggest one last year actually was the Better Business Bureau has couple companies in Cincinnati they award the Torch Award to for ethics. And being ethical is so important, especially in a small, big city like Cincinnati. If you don't do things right, it'll catch up to you. And if you do things right, you'll be successful. So the awards mean nothing to me. My team does it all. We're proud to win them, but it's just a tribute to how hard and great my employees are.
I love that sentiment, and I look forward to seeing whatever you're not allowed to talk about right now coming down the pike for you guys in 23. Well, the last question, and I like to end all of the interviews like this: how do you think the people that have worked with you in your career would describe you as a leader?
I listen, integrity filled, kind of servant leadership. Like I said earlier, I'll roll up my sleeves. I'll unload a truck, sweep a floor, but I also go sit in a news story like this. You know, it's leading by example, treating people right, and good things will follow.
Well, I can attest to that. I've known you for a few years now, and you definitely back up all of the sentiment that you've shared today. And I wish you much continued success, and hope to cross paths again in person soon. I think I've randomly run into you a time or two out at chamber events and things like that. So thank you for all you do for our association. Thank you for being a member. And I appreciate you taking time to share a little bit about yourself and junking today.
Of course. Always great to talk to you. And you guys keep doing great things as well.
All right. Well, thanks. And thanks, everyone. We'll be back again next week with another edition of the Weekly Member Spotlight.